Good evening, folks. Back to our regular meeting. We just finished off a public meeting. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the land acknowledgement of traditional territory. Armour Township is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. Armour Township recognizes the historical and contemporary contributions of the local First Nations and the peoples of Turtle Island. Also like to remind folks that this is being recorded. This disclaimer is to inform all participants that this meeting conducted in person and via Zoom will be recorded for record-keeping purposes. By participating in the meeting, you consent that the recording may contain your video stream, including images of yourself. Your video stream, this includes any opinions you may contribute. Anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of the personal data recorded if they actively participate or not. By staying in the meeting, you consent to being recorded. By consenting and attending the meetings virtually or in person, participants also agree to recordings being posted to YouTube or other distribution services. First up, we have a set of minutes. Council Township of Armour approved the minutes of the Council meeting held on May 26, 2025 as circulated. If I can get a mover, Jerry. Seconder, Dorothy. Any questions, errors, or omissions on the Tri-Council minutes? All those in favor? And that's carried. And second set of minutes, Council Township of Armour approved the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 27th, 2025 as circulated. Get a mover. Dorothy. Seconder. Rod. Any errors, omissions, questions on the regular minutes? All those in favor? And that is carried. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest general based on tonight's agenda? And unnoted. And tonight we have two delegations, Amy and Dave. So Amy, you are first on the list. And this is item 4 in the agenda packages. So Amy, over to you.
Good evening, all. So just a few items on my report that you have in front of you. Hoping to have the reuse open by the end of June, maybe. We have one other post that we have to fix before we can start allowing residents under. Compactor's back. I haven't seen the bill for it yet. Last chatted, it was coming in under our budget, so I'm hoping that might still be the same thing, even though it was 2 months longer than it should have been. Shipped some mattresses out, ready for starting the next load. Any questions or comments in the first section? All right, well then we'll move right into the inspection. It was a bit of a surprise. They let me know on a Thursday that they were coming in to do an inspection on Tuesday. Lucked out. Packer came home on the Friday evening and staff went hard at it and did a beautiful job getting us ready. A lot of work went into the 8-hour session. So next time you're by, make sure you make a note to them. He gave me some verbal directions. We talked about potential mining for further years of capacity. And he's telling me approvals are out 2 to 3 years at this point. So if we were going to do something like that, we might want to start looking into it now so that we'd be ready 3 to 4 years from now. He did make some other recommendations that I've chatted with the engineer about. And we need to clarify some points, but I'm still waiting for his inspection report. And when I see it, so will you. When I visited the Waste Association, there was a lot of chatter about these PFAS and how municipalities are starting to encounter this in their landfill monitoring. It's commonly found in things like that you want to bond to adhesives like prime example that they were giving was electrical tape. A lot of consultants will use electrical tape to fix a well hose, and it gets into the landfill that way. It's there, so the wax that you use for your cross country and downhill skis, that's a common denominator as well. It's not been regulated yet, so when I hear, I'll let you know and we'll start budgeting accordingly, and hopefully. So we just finished our first sample, surface sample of the year back in May. The next one would be in September. We could potentially do that ahead of time, but it might also flag something that we don't want to flag yet. So, because along with that, if you're finding these PFAS in the monitoring, then you're getting into leachate treatment, which is something we are not prepared for at the site. We're an attenuation landfill, which means it runs downhill through those two mantles that we have, and it filters out before the Magnatowan River. So it's harder to filter this out, and once it's detected, they have other treatments that would be required. A lot of money, and hopefully that's still down the road. With all that said, I've also grabbed a flyer that came in, not actually a flyer, it was a proposal from Emerald Energy from Waste. So they incinerate waste to energy. And if we get to a point where we're looking at mining, this would be a company that we should start chatting with so that we would have an alternate place for the waste to go while we're mining that section of landfill. 3 to 4 years down the road, but it's a chat we might want to make now so that we know that there'll be capacity at that incinerator down the road when we may need it. So that's the long and short of all that entertainment for the month of May. And then speaking into the circular materials, they had a couple of sessions as well at the Municipal Waste Association. A lot was being said, and I'm still trying to figure out why one group says one thing and another group, which is the same group working together, says something else, but we're getting there. So I've attached for you some timelines and some media as information. We don't need to chat about it unless you have questions. There was some updates that I've received since the report was made. Now we have proposed amendments posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario. And that would be to amend the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act so that they can be more transparent. And now that they've realized the costs are a lot higher than what they thought they were, they're looking for ways that they could make it more efficient, for lack of a better term. All that's posted on the Environmental Registry if you wanted to read any of that. At this point, I would ask for any questions or comments.
Questions for Amy? Wendy?
Amy, where's the incineration company? Where are they out of? Where are the incinerators currently operating somewhere?
Yes, so they run out of Brampton. I actually spoke with this gentleman before when we were talking about it, but we didn't get down to, like, they've actually sent us a nice proposal where expression of interest. So they're building a new facility, which would give them more capacity. And it would be nice to get your toehold in if there was a need for it later on down the road.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just wondering, Amy, would it be wise to get a hold of them now that if we didn't landmine, we could send the material out at that time?
Well, that's why, yeah, I'd like to get to chatting with them about what they will accept. And there's a few other items like cost recovery. So do we recover costs, or are they just totally charging us for burning our garbage? Because there are incentives for this organization. So
Okay,
There's a lot of things to discuss and work out.
thank you.
So between that and the mining though, Amy, it sounds like it's a good time to start at least investigating this because it's a long process from the sounds of it.
Yeah, and then you'd have to start finding the companies to get the quotes for mining the landfill as well. So
Yeah,
this company would be more than happy to take waste. I'm not sure that they would take the waste that we're mining because we don't segregate construction from household garbage,
oh, yeah.
where they're more looking for the household garbage stream. I can print this flyer print the expression of interest from Emerald and circulate it for the council in your mail slots at the office.
Okay, thanks, Amy. I think I did see a copy of that in my inbox. I haven't read through it yet, but. Okay. And it sounds like circular materials, at least with the items that they're going to be recycling, it's a little more clear now. Like it looks like they're going to essentially take anything that's recyclable. So there's not all this guessing about whether it can go in or not.
Well, there'll still be some guessing because what some of us think are recyclable are really
Yeah.
not recyclable. So like car mats.
Yeah.
No. But yes, so I'm still waiting to see that list because styrofoam in, film plastic out, or whatever myth they've determined would be best. So
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Amy? Appreciate it. Thanks, Amy. Is there any other updates you wanted to bring tonight?
I think I've touched on everything I had.
Okay.
Well, actually, I will take a step back there. IC&I Waste 2026. I did shoot out an email and Denis and the village, they're talking to their contractor to see what the cost would be. So they're actively working on what they need to do. And what I'm doing in the background is looking at Armour and Ryerson to see. So we reported 4.4% of our total volume being commercial and business weight, blue box. So we get a deduction on our monthly contractor rebate. In 2026, I need to figure out exactly what that is. Are we going to put separate bins in and ship it the way everything else is shipped on a separate truck at a separate cost? Are we going to throw it in our baler? So I'd like to start getting that all tightened up and probably come back and talk about that a little further in July so that we can start making decisions on what we want to do for 2026.
See, there's kind of a re-push on the IC&Is with the other municipalities trying to get it included. I don't know, it's probably too late, but there's been a recent push again, I think from AMO and others.
Yes, so what is posted on the environmental registry, it sort of leads me to believe that they may be looking at including small businesses.
Hmm.
So there was a regulation previous to this that spoke specifically to the size of the business or the commercial business and what they had to do to ensure their waste was sorted and segregated. But the province dropped that when they came out with this regulation and didn't carry it forward. They just left the IC&I. It's a non-eligible source. Too bad for you. But it sounds like they're trying to take some of that back. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the groups are looking into it and talking about it. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Anything else for anybody? Appreciate it. Thanks for the update, Amy. You're welcome to stay as always.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up on our delegation list, we have Dave Creaser, and this is item 5 in the agenda package. So Dave, over to you for your June update.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've been actively working on our construction operations, changing culverts, ditching. Our grading is substantially complete. It's ongoing on a as needed basis, typically following rainfalls to keep our calcium close to the surface. We also have the water truck as needed. We had just replaced culvert near Ferguson Road on Doe Lake Road today. That was from one of the culverts that was an issue after the spring freshet. It washed part of the road out, and so that was replaced, which was good. We did also order the radar, the solar powered radar speed sign for Doe Lake Road in Katrine. So that will require locates as well to install the posts. Locates were put in. Locates are moving about a month out, and I've been getting requests to extend the time about a week here and there. So locates are slow moving. Lakeland does not locate their personal feeds for fiber. We found that out on First Avenue last week. We hit one of their personal feeds, it was not on our locates. We reported it immediately to Lakeland. They looked after it. It was unfortunate to knock out a private service, but I guess that's the cost of doing business going forward. The health and safety rep and myself for Public Works did attend a training session geared towards public workers from the Ministry of Labor that was put on up in Nipissing earlier this month, which was informative about what they're focusing on and what they're seeing and enforcing the crackdowns that are coming through. So, and we haven't picked up our winter tires yet, but that'll happen tomorrow. They're ready, and we'll pick them up and get them ready for next year. Yesterday, we did start and move the single axle that's been sitting out behind the sand shed. It started right up. We turned the main power on, and started up, moved, lifted the plow, lifted the wing, which was promising, took down all the information. The box is rotten. And the tailgates doesn't work, still has a load of sand on. So I'm looking to put that on GovDeals. We've got some good information. Got some videos of it moving, all the details of the build, the kilometers, the engine, everything's on it with good videos. So hopefully we got some good information and we get some interest. It's a good time of year to put it up for auction. We hope that individuals doing private roads might be interested in it. It would be a good truck for private roads. We can pull the box off or leave the box on and put just a slide-in sander box. That might be an option for somebody as well. But for us, it would need a whole lot of work to get it back on the road. I wouldn't recommend going down that road. It'd be quite expensive. The trucks we have are in good shape. They're good trucks, good builds. Any questions? Any of the information?
Question?
So the radar sign, my takeaway last time was that it was going to be on a trailer that could be moved. That's no longer the consideration. Now it's going to be like placed in one spot specifically and not mobile.
At this time, we don't have the funds to purchase a trailer for it with the budget. We can get the sign. I could put up a post. For the cost for a 4x4 post to put it in the ground is about the cost that we would be out. I could, next year's budget, I can certainly look at getting a trailer. We can also see what trailers are available in the area. Maybe a used trailer might work, like an old steam Jenny trailer. I could talk to the municipalities and see if they have something such as that we could take and put the sign mounted on. Previously at Whitestone, that's what I did. I mounted it on one of the old steam Jenny trailers. It didn't cost too much. We can look at that. But at this time, it's going on a post. That's what we can afford.
Is it possible to have multiple posts and move it from one post to another?
That is possible, yes.
Okay. So if we found the need was more significant somewhere else, it could be moved?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Actually, Dave, John Wilson makes those steam Jennies and trailers right here in Burks Falls. Might be an idea to get a cost from them.
Will do. Thank you very much, Counselor.
Other questions? So ever since I saw your report, Dave, I've been avoiding Ferguson Road. Has the work started on Ferguson yet, or is that upcoming?
It is indeed, it has started. We're trying to limit the damage to the road surface, so we're doing the ditching first. And then we'll get into the dig outs, frost tapers, a little bit closer to when we pulverize, just to minimize the disruption to the public and keep the dust down. We're trying to schedule everything as professionally as possible to provide the least disruption to the traveling public.
It's looked like about a 2.5 kilometer stretch. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. We did order some geogrid today there's that one clay section which doesn't have good structural support below, and over time it doesn't act well in the spring. In the spring it doesn't support the loads and the road moves a lot. So geogrid is go down and it'll reduce the cost of gravel, the amount of gravel needed. It also provide tensile structural. So as the gravel's put on the grid, it will resist the movement laterally. So it will distribute the load over a larger area, and you'll get less of the plasticity in the clay or the weaker subsoils. We've also improved drainage in the area as well. So those things should improve the area. The concern is if we improve it too much in one area, the other area that's good may not look so good. So you gotta kind of keep it all kind of even, so the road is all kind of rides nicely the same way. You don't want to make anything just too perfect, because when it hits the imperfection, you get the bump, that's when the car notices it. So it's all about transitions and keeping everything just kind of riding nicely, draining nicely, and keeping the geometry of the road so the road can navigate, the cars can navigate safely.
I appreciate you spending time on that road. There were a few comments on some of the Facebook groups over the past few months, so it's good to see you working on that. Any other questions or comments for Dave? Okay, thanks very much, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay around if you like. Otherwise, you can have the rest of the evening off.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Okay. Next up, we have a set of accounts. Council of Township of Armour approved the June 2025 accounts in the amount of $617,469.19 for payment, and the mayor and the treasurer are hereby authorized to sign checks for same.
Sure.
Rod
Sure.
and Dorothy. Any questions for Dave or for Allison on the accounts?
I had a couple, but I got my answer, so I'm good.
Okay. I don't think I had any. Okay, so
I was struggling with why we were sending all of our employees away to learn how to retire early, but anyway.
I got over it.
Or would be really good at it.
on the same day. Maybe there's a lottery plan.
Well, there's no plan, we never follow through it.
Not working.
OLG doesn't do their part.
Nothing. Okay, there are no other questions. All those in favor? And we can pay the bills. We have no applications. And we are on to bylaws. First one is follow up to our public meeting earlier this evening. Council of the Township of Armour have read and approved bylaw 35-2025, being a bylaw to remove the restriction of one sewage disposal system per lot on any lot with a defined area of 1 hectare, 2.5 acres or more, and situated above any high water mark floodplain or wetland protection area also located on the lot. And then we authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too. Sure. Okay, so I got Dorothy's hand up and Rod seconded. Okay. Questions for Charlene or Kayla? Were you involved in this one or no?
All Kayla.
All Kayla. Any questions for Kayla?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So based on the requirements here that the system has to be above the high water mark, floodplain or wetland protection area. Does that mean we're gonna be involving an OLS if there's a request for the second septic on a piece of property? To determine, like, not all our lands have.
Right now, the Conservation Authority would be in charge, right? As conservation, we still have the Conservation Authority, they'd be the approval, but now they know that they have the authorization to put more than one septic on, right?
My question is, are they gonna, how is anybody gonna determine
Where the high water
where the
mark?
high water mark is? We've had, let me say this. We've had issues in the past with North Bay Mattawa not necessarily paying as close attention to our zoning bylaw as we'd like them to. And I just think this is another level of detail. I'm not sure how we're gonna make sure that it's enforced.
So you have contacts at the Conservation Authority,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if we notified them.
Yeah.
There's been some recent changes with staffing, and
Yeah.
I actually received a phone call from someone from the Conservation Authority within the last month, just asking for clarification on some of the zoning.
Yeah.
So if
I
we
just think this
circulate that,
is something we're gonna have to make sure that they're aware that we've implemented and that,
yeah, yeah, they enforce it.
that they make sure that it's enforced.
Would it not be caught by building? Because isn't this part of the building plan?
Well, the septics aren't approved by our building official, right?
They're outlined in the building plan, aren't they? I'm asking, I don't know.
That would be a question for Doug. I don't.
Okay.
So the septic is, like, the permit is part of the application, right?
But it's
Certain
the North Bay Mattawa right now.
Yes. So my
And Doug would see it on
is
there.
Doug can't issue a building permit without having a septic approved.
Oh, okay.
But if we're talking a second septic system on a lot, we're saying it's not just, do you have the area for it? We want to make sure these other perimeters are in place.
Mhm.
So it's just another level of detail that I'm not sure, we have to make sure North Bay Mattawa is okay with enforcing this. Otherwise, do we have to make sure that that's in place
Prior to them going to.
prior to the approval from North Bay Mattawa? Like, I know we wouldn't approve septic at this point, but can we say?
So what's the difference between the first septic and the second? Right, this is.
One could be existing already, of which we wouldn't know about. Whereas if they apply for the second one,
Well, I know North Bay Mattawa approves septic systems
Yeah,
in floodplains. They have to put raised beds in. but
Yeah.
They are approving them in. And we're saying, from what I read here, if I'm understanding this correctly, we will allow the second septic as long as it isn't in the floodplain, which is
Yeah,
different than.
I know it with some of my
existing.
conversations, with Doug, he was saying that there's so many different types of septics right now, and different, so whether that comes into play. But Kayla, you can ask Doug and maybe we have Doug provide a response to council.
Okay, thanks.
But if it's detailed in the zoning bylaw, and this speaks specifically to allowing more than one septic. The Conservation Authority has it, we'll get it in the zoning bylaw and
Hope that it's enforced.
hopefully it's enforced.
The other thing that tends not to happen on the small, like this suggested, the less than 2.5 acre lots, that the old system has to come out first. I think we've had a habit in the past of not doing that. That's actually what led to us putting in this bylaw around single septics in the first place. So I don't know how much sway Doug has over that, but it's something to look at from a building permit perspective, just to make sure the old one's decommissioned before the new one goes in.
I know that has been part of his considerations, and he's talked about ensuring that they're either removed or otherwise, because it's not just contamination, but a potential
Danger.
danger.
Yeah.
Either now or down the road. So it's been something that has been on his radar.
Certainly in the site plan control and any site plan drawings. But as for any rule or anything that doesn't fall under site
Right.
plan.
Yeah.
There's no, confirmation.
Okay. Any other questions for Kayla or Shar or Dave? Or Doug? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next up. Proclamation of proceedings bylaw. Council Township of Armour have written approved bylaw 36-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its May meetings and that we authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too. You mover, Dorothy. Seconder, Drew. Rod. So these were from regular council meetings, May 13th and 27th, tri-council, May 26th. Any questions? All those in favor? And carried. Next up, item number 9. This is to enter into a lease agreement with James McConnell operating as Grumpy Jim's Ice Cream for the Doe Lake Municipal Park. So I'll read in the resolution, and then we shall have questions and answers. Council of Township of Armour approved bylaw 37-2025 being a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with James McConnell operating as Grumpy Jim's Ice Cream for part of Doe Lake Municipal Park. We authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too.
Sure.
Jerry. Seconder.
Sure.
Dorothy. Okay, so questions on this one?
What are the dates that he's looking at leasing from?
Loosely between June 15th, October 15th. The cart is still just awaiting all the proper finalizations. He figured that latest the Canada Day long weekend, but the lease will be from 15th to the 15th, June to October.
In the same terms as before, an all-inclusive lease, including.
Yeah, same breakdown of costs. It'll be there in your agreement, but there's provision for hydro and it was noted that should there be a crazy overage for hydro, I can't foresee that being an issue, but that we'd be able to make that whole again. So we did sit down and review the entire agreement, and he was pretty comfortable with. Well, we didn't bring his glasses, so if you can picture the wonderful tone of my voice reading through that entire agreement, it was I narrated. It was a good time.
That's like 5 days away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think there's still some approvals coming in, so I don't know necessarily that he'll be in for then. Interesting point is that from my conversations, he's intending to actually bring the trailer on site and remove it daily for fear of he says in vandalism in his previous operations. Yeah, so it'll be coming in and going out every day.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? We have a new ice cream place. We're gonna have ice cream wars in Katrina.
Yeah, hot dogs and sausage. So that's
I like that.
Yeah.
Breakfast of champions.
Get a little bicycle, little bell going.
Yeah.
We were trying to alleviate alternative traffic on Ferguson.
Okay, next one is adjustment to site plan control. I'll read this one in. Council Township of Armour approved bylaw 38-2025 being a bylaw to establish site plan control in the Township of Armour and repeal bylaw 20-2023. We authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too. And mover. We got Wendy and Dorothy. Okay. So maybe share some background on this one, just to make sure I don't miss anything here.
This one was basically initiated between conversations between Bob and Kayla. And Wendy, Wendy asked the questions this morning.
Well, I asked what the difference was between this one and the old one, and I believe it's D's been added. means the erection, which is adding the land lease community home. That
Mhm.
wasn't in the old one, I believe.
No,
I think that was the only difference she said, wasn't it?
in the facade,
Sorry.
removing out the
Oh,
design.
Yeah,
So with changes in the Planning Act, we no longer have the authority to regulate like the facade design. So that should have been taken out last year.
which is too bad because we have used that before. We
Yeah.
used it for Tim Hortons. They were
Oh,
gonna,
is that right?
yeah, they were gonna have some kind of a siding on, like a vinyl siding or something over there, and we asked them to reconsider it. And they put the wood looking siding. So
Mm,
we did,
Smart decision, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the dark sky friendly lighting,
Yeah.
we've used that before.
So
So
design things we really don't have any control over anymore.
apparently the problem
Certain
is we
ones.
can't do it anymore.
Certain things like we saw the dark sky policy in the OP.
Yeah,
that we had
that's still in the OP,
enforce.
yeah.
So this is just to catch us up to the changes from last year then.
Yes.
We've got
We update that one every year for some reason.
yeah, that's usually something. Well, they change things so quick, so often that. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? It's carried. And last but not least. Council Township of Armour approved bylaw 39-2025 being a bylaw to establish the Armour Recreation Advisory Committee. Adopt terms of reference and repeal bylaw 49-2022. We authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation thereto. Got a mover and Dorothy. Seconder.
Sure.
Rod. Okay. On the table. So we used to have a committee.
You haven't had one for a couple of years. Haven't had a chair, vice chair. Yeah, it's basically staff and some volunteers. They have been making recommendations. This was apparently to be rescinded a couple years ago
Oh, yes.
I think
after Danica's return, and
Yeah,
we didn't have somebody in a staff position running the community center, right? Or events around the community center. So it was like a volunteer committee where the decisions were made. So we needed a committee, whereas now we have staff, so we don't necessarily need a committee to make the recommendations, to take the minutes, to report back to council. Because we now have a staff doing that, right?
and then the way that the committee existed under the 2022 bylaw gave them authority over Danica and staffing and hiring and firing. The
The
way that
committee had
John,
that authority.
that's what John had said before.
yeah, because that was supposed to be short term. It's been there for a few years.
So now it's an advisory committee to council.
So they're just advising on potential events,
Yeah, they're not making
not
decisions.
making the actual call.
No, and that's detailed in the terms of reference.
Yeah, it's there's everything else.
It's very necessary. We can't have a committee saying that we're doing bingos on Tuesdays and Danica's like, we have programming established for Tuesdays, right?
Yeah. So Kate, Armour Council is confirming the program, not the committee, as to what's being, if there's ever an issue.
They can vote, but they're only voting on recommendations.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's nothing financial or.
Right.
Do they have potential volunteers lined up from the community or is it?
There's 3 of us that consistently go.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, any other questions for Shar, Dave, Dorothy on this one?
I think historically, what this committee was meant to do is exactly what the staff is now doing.
Yeah,
So finding ideas, creating ideas of things that can go on within the community. The staff is now presenting loads of those, so no need for.
Looking at the membership here, I'm available as follows, never.
You just really want to make sure they know you read it.
He's like his name on things.
Okay, no other questions? All those in favor? That is carried. We're already into reports. Okay, first up, we have the planning report, item number 12. Ask you a question, Shar, about the subdivision on Deer Lake. Is there,
We received I was maybe on Friday or late last week, documentation from the planning board regarding the planner's report from the planning board. I guess there's been conversations between Lanny and the planning board's planner. And so I forwarded it to our planner to see if he would be willing to provide comments to council, and he said no, because they have not addressed the lake capacity. So he says until he has the numbers, the science behind it, he's not making any recommendations to council at this time, based on what's being proposed. So I forwarded that comment to the planning board and to the planners and included their planner so that they're aware, because maybe I wasn't sure if I was missing some documentation, that maybe something came through and it hadn't been sent to us, but I haven't heard back. It was just weird that I had received some information from that was detailed in the planner's report, but that wasn't addressed. And it was considered a valid concern at the time.
So do we know whether they're doing something for lake capacity?
I have no idea at this time. I know that the lake capacity study that they're based the calculations on was done during the 2019 flood. Like that. So Bob's concerned about the numbers that were presented, because I think it said in that report that Deer Lake could handle 300 new residences or something.
yeah, so there's a conflict between that report and the one from whatever it was 25 years ago.
Yes, well, the numbers aren't there. Bob wants to see the science behind it. He wants to see the numbers before he makes any recommendations to council.
But how I remember that is there's different classes, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
If it was a class 1 and if all of a sudden it changed to a class 2, then there would be all kinds of extra, depending on the water quality.
Right.
So
And
that could be, maybe it moved to a different quality of water,
Yeah, I have no idea
but we'll have to wait and see what comes.
Yeah,
what the planning board decides to do, because like they're the governing authority. If they say, no, we don't need this, we're gonna make the decision, then the planning board doesn't need Armour's input. They can move forward with their list and their notice of decision of requirements. Just because Bob has some concerns with it doesn't mean that it's gonna stall it with the planning board side.
Did Armour do a resolution with some concerns that we had though? Did we not?
Yes.
yeah, we had a bunch of conditions.
And we haven't heard a response back from either their planner or the applicant on our concerns.
We heard. But that doesn't change Bob's stance. Because he wants those reports. When he's asked for those reports and he's asked for clarification on different things, he said that if they had proposed the development based on what was approved by the ministry or the OLT back at that time,
Yeah.
that would have been fine. But there's been changes in the plan. There's lots now in the wetlands.
Right.
Building envelope issue has been determined. The building envelope was being confused with developable lot size, and that wasn't what it was.
But my question is, are you saying that the planning board could move forward with either approval with conditions or denial without addressing Armour's concerns?
They could do that with a consent, right? Because they have timelines to follow.
Yeah.
Can one of the planning board's conditions be that the Armour Township conditions are met? Is that something they're able to do?
But it is.
Yes, okay, okay.
It's
So
usually,
at that time, it would then come back to us, correct?
well, what happens is usually I get the application, I send it to Bob. He provides a report with list of recommendations. I put those in as the resolution wording. So you guys say that you approve this application, subject to these conditions, the road deviation, the cash in lieu, the suitable entrances. But with the subdivision, it's much more detailed, right? Because
It's a subdivision.
Yeah, but with this one, there's some concerns with lake capacity.
Even in the event that the planning board approves it, we then still have the option to have our requirement
No.
met.
We don't at that point.
One of the notices.
But what if,
Up to us first.
but my question was, if the planning board's recommendation is that they have to meet all of our requirements.
But we don't have any requirements because Bob's basically said that until we get this information, we're not making a list of recommendations.
But didn't we, when it came to us?
There was a list of recommendations that they dealt with things that needed to be done, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the planning board has to put those in the notice of decision. The planning
Oh,
board
okay.
is the governing authority when it comes to
And if
division.
And if the conditions become too onerous, it's more straightforward for the applicant to just go to the OLT and say, these conditions are not fair. Don't fight it at that level. So the planning board has to be reasonable in its decision.
Yeah,
I think our conditions or our considerations were very reasonable.
Yeah, and the planning board usually looks at what the township is saying.
yeah.
Do we get any sense that the applicant might be amending their application to deal with some of our concerns?
I think there's been some back and forth with the planning board regarding it.
Yeah. They're
Um,
going direct with the planning board, not with us.
not with us, but Linda has sent it to us. Bob still refusing to respond and provide a report to council because the lakeshore capacity issue has not been addressed.
So do we need to deal with that?
What do you mean?
Well,
It was sent back to the applicant. Like when I sent it back to Linda, you know, the agent for apprentices was included. So they're aware.
The problem is when you go over to that site and you look at that lake, I have a hard time thinking that it's anywhere close to capacity. Like it's like if you go out on 3 Mile Lake, you look around and say, oh yeah, they're at capacity. But when you go over there and you look at the way that property's been set up, the lots are huge. It's not like you're on top of somebody else or directly across from somebody. So like he's saying he wants that lake capacity report, but let's be practical about it. If you go and look at that, I don't think you'd want to put 300 places on it, but this is somewhere between 10 and 15 on, like I say, it's a huge piece of land.
yeah, it's more the development in the wetlands that I'd like to see,
Yeah,
you know, cut back.
I think there was concerns expressed too in the public or in the open house about the depth of the Deer Lake not being that deep.
it's not that deep, yeah. But neither is 3 Mile. I mean, 3 Mile is only maximum 30 feet deep. So it's not much different than Deer Lake, I don't think. I think the average depth in Deer Lake is pretty shallow, but it, has. deep
I'm thinking
spots.
4 meters, but that can't be right.
No, I think it's more than that.
There's
If I was home, I could tell you because I did all the lakes around for the hatcheries. And there's government websites where you can just go on and it tells you.
Yeah,
what it is.
I remember something with Bob saying something about 4.
Yeah.
That had to do with the lake.
So it's ongoing.
It's an average depth of 15 feet.
Yeah, so it's about 4 meters. Yeah.
So it could be deeper, could be lesser.
The maximum depth is 51 feet,
61 feet.
51 feet.
So that's actually deeper than 3 Mile Lake.
But it says Deer Lake located west of Mikisew Provincial Park. That's, in Perry Sound District. That's
No, that's another Deer Lake.
That's a Deer Lake.
I wrote
over
Deer Lake in Emsdale.
There's 2 Deer Lakes over that way.
Big Deer, max depth is 30 feet, 9 meters.
Yeah, so
That's far.
that is a lot like 3 Mile, then, very similar.
And that's pretty deep,
Yeah,
but
And then the only other update that's not highlighted is the final peer review for Solar Bank. We received that one last week. And then I've sent it to the fire chief and our emergency management for review. Their comments came back today and was sent back to PLC with some comments, and then we'll see what transpires. So at this point, Solar Bank has not received the final peer review, which will take some time. There were some concerns with the report or requests for clarification. But any of the ones that have been sent to Solar Bank for peer reviews in the last month, we have not heard anything back. So I don't know what they're working on that end, but that's where it stands.
okay.
The last I.
Well, there's a lot of people out there asking, what's going on, what's going on? I said, well, basically until we hear from them, we don't know.
Well, at this point, the peer reviews have not been posted to the website. I will put them up once the final one goes to Solar.
Yeah, but really it has to come to our table, I think, before you do that.
Well, the peer reviews? All the reports are
Yeah,
up there.
reports.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the planning report? Also the building report, I guess. Kayla made sure she got out of here as quick as possible.
Let's call her back.
I'd never seen Kayla's print.
See her take off, right way.
Start the car.
How we would fail an outhouse final.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
It's an outhouse.
You can get a permit from North Bay Manawa to locate an outhouse.
Maybe they didn't build it.
So I wonder how it failed.
Well-
Was it dug deep enough first?
It was in the attic.
Neighbors.
Maybe that's what it was.
Can you,
Thought that was it,
can the first building on the property be an outhouse?
probably.
It looks like maybe,
Yeah, there's no roller sign.
well, so maybe this has been like a severed piece of land and they put the outhouse on the severed piece.
Yeah,
They issued a building permit for it though.
Yeah, it's on the list, must have issued a building permit, interesting. That caught my eye.
maybe it wasn't working.
Oh, I wouldn't want to know how it was failing.
Never flushed.
It must be.
So I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah.
I guess it's over 160 square feet.
Could be a big one.
It's got a livable loft.
That's disgusting.
It's a-
But,
The Taj Mahal outhouse.
We have-
Four holder.
a bed in there.
Okay, next up we have EMS report. I guess this is a different meeting from the one we saw in the last meeting.
It is, and it's actually what happened was it came in just before our last council meeting and you spoke about issue with financing or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in that agenda that we were reviewing. It was in this one. So you must have read the email, but just couldn't find, remember you said you couldn't find it in the,
Yeah.
that's why it was in this one. But you know me and add-on.
I haven't had a chance. I was gonna give Dan a call and ask him if they discussed the option of going back with the fire hall again, like, but I
It
haven't
was
followed up.
an over budget.
Because it's quite a bit over budget.
Be interesting on a conversation.
Yeah,
It would be wonderful for the build to include it in the build.
Detrimental to Burke's Falls.
yeah, that's,
Provide them with more land we can utilize. It's fantastic.
The tender's already closed for the.
Just add it on anyway.
Oh, so this is mute? If the tender's closed?
yeah, the tender's already, that's right, closed last week.
No, I mean, when the tender went out, it would have been moved.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's true. Okay,
Whoever got the tender, just kidding, want to build something bigger?
Okay.
yeah,
You can spin a project with written notice and approval from both parties.
slows you down.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have planning boards. We had a meeting last, 2 Wednesdays ago, May 28th. 4 hearings. The one thing that's not obvious from the minutes is that we have increased all of the planning board fees after. And essentially on average, I think they doubled, but they hadn't been looked at since 2014. Some of them hadn't been looked at since 2008. So we did a calculation based on inflation. And by the time you did that and looked at today, it was roughly double for all of them. So we kind of even things off. Took some of the fees out, added some new ones in, but that'll be circulated. I don't know if you've seen it yet, sure. I asked.
I'd like it as soon as possible. I can get it updated on the website.
I told her to get it out as soon as possible. So I have to go see Linda tomorrow to sign stuff off. So I'll ask her to make sure she sends it in.
Yeah, I'll get it up on the website. Now, if I have anything going forward, I have a lot of inquiries regarding fees for planning board. And so I reference them. I tell them what our fees normally are, but good to know.
Okay. There's some other rumblings at the planning board level, but I'll save those for another meeting. There's could be stuff over the next few weeks, I think. Any questions about planning board?
How are the meetings going without me there?
It's hard, sure.
Okay, whatever, whatever.
The worst part is trying to juggle, so you're trying to, it's a good thing I have 2 screens and I can't do those meetings in person because there's just so much going on. So if somebody's coming in through Zoom and you're trying to remember to let them in or ask them, it's too, but if you're sitting in front of your computer and everything's on Zoom, it's okay. It works out fine. So
I can come back. I just
have minutes.
You weren't going.
Oh, you don't have, well, because it was just getting to be way too much and then doing the minutes. I'll come back and moderate, but I don't want to do the minutes.
That's the thing we need.
You're not getting them anyways.
You do the minutes and then they just just record them. Well, actually you can, I don't know if Zoom does it, but in Teams, you can actually have a note taker that actually transcripts the entire thing and you can get minutes out of it, so.
You can do it on Zoom, but there's a whole process you gotta.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't tried it.
You have to have you'll see like in the note taking app as a
It
participant.
pops up. Yeah,
So you have to let it in. It's not as easy to run.
not as smooth.
And I found that the Teams is really, really nice if everyone's on Teams. Like to do a room like this, it wouldn't tell you who said what or who did what, but you can, if everybody's on Teams on their own computer, it'll actually spit out it'll give you a transcript.
Yeah, say Dave said this.
But then you throw that transcript into Chat GPT and ask it to give you minutes. And it will do that. I've done that for several kind of less formal subcommittees. Bangs it out real quick. Might be something worth.
Does it throw in emotions like Dave said angrily?
Actually, listen to the video.
Yeah.
And in a mocking tone.
Well, the other option is putting it out with recording it and then get the planning board their own YouTube channel and Dave can upload them.
Dave's got so much time.
Yeah. That's big directions from his clerk. My mind's.
That's okay,
We'll chat.
so yeah, that's good. We're surviving okay, sure, but we miss you at the meetings.
No.
Was good, that's what. Okay, up next we have 16 Southeast Dunmangon Highlands Regional Fire Services. I think we talked to this, this was from March. Yeah, so the next meeting, they have scheduled it on the same day as an ACE meeting. So Vicky and I both asked if the meeting could be changed. Because that would affect both of us. So. But in the next meeting, they want to do a tour of the new burn building in Perry, which is, I talked to Cam today, I saw him in the grocery store. He said it's almost done. So they're working on finishing that off before the end of June.
Kearney's doing a roast beef dinner on the 14th. Kearney Fire Department as a fundraiser.
Okay. Good.
They're doing so much social media stuff. It's super fun.
17 is from the District of Perry Sound Municipal Meeting Dave and I were at. David, Jury and I were at.
Mhm.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me.
And this one?
That's your, okay, so you're at the end of reports there, right? You just finished the regional fire, now you got the.
Fire. Oh, I missed Health Council. Okay, Health Council meeting, I do have minutes, but I'm not gonna read through them all. They just came out minutes before I left the house. So the main thing is we are planning the Almeguin Healthcare Summit for October 7th. It's been confirmed for October 7th at the KCC. Shelley Vandenhoedel, who is temporarily the executive director here at the Family Health Team, is going to be facilitating that. And we approved the budget. We still have money in the account, so we just approved a maximum of $5,000. There's no way it'll be $5,000. So I had put in 2,000 originally. The argument was, well, we don't want to come back if it happens to go over that, just set it at 5,000. We know we're not going to spend that much. So that's why it says 5,000.
Is the KCC being donated?
As far as I know, but I'm not sure Danica knows that yet.
Okay, as it should be.
Actually, I don't know if it's a donation if we're using it for municipal business. I don't think I think it would be free anyway. Since
Is
it's
this municipal business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shelley also mentioned that there is a target between Sundridge and Berks and the Almeguin Highlands Family Health Team in Berks Falls to get 500 patients off the wait list before the end of June. Is it June or July?
That would be wonderful.
Pushing hard.
The annex just in Huntsville, which is like the not walk in, but you can't have a doctor. They've just announced that nothing north of Emsdale, no persons north of Emsdale will be seen there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they hit a wall. They're so busy that they had to cut it off. So that was, yeah, they re-announced that this morning at a meeting I was at. So actually, Janine from the Algonquin Family Health Team that runs the annex is going to be one of the participants in the workshop. So she's going to talk about what they did, how they got the annex set up, and that's going to be one of the.
It's an incredible resource. So
Yeah.
it would be incredible if we could have something similar here.
And then, oh, the other news from the AHHC is that Ashley's just too busy. She can't do the administrative work anymore, but Kate Long, who does the admin for the Ontario Health Team, is going to do it for us for at least for the next 6 months. And she's great. So that creates another link between us and the Muskoka-Almeguin Health Team, Ontario Health Team. So she'll be helping out. That'll get us over the hump until hopefully we can find somebody else. Camille wasn't interested in coming back because I guess she's too busy in her role now too. So, well, I shouldn't say that. She wanted to come back, but she can't. She wasn't allowed to come back. She's too busy.
Of the 500 that they're gonna get off the list, what will that leave us number wise?
So I think they were at 1,100 in Berks Falls and about 100 in Sundridge before. So it was a total of about 1,200. And actually some of them are already off the list because I was on the list. So I think it was down by. I'm guessing they'll have about 800 total off the list. I don't think the 500 includes who's off now. I think the goal is to get another 500. And they're getting people from here all the way over to Sprucedale. It's getting a lot of people off the list. Well, all good news. I'll keep you posted on the summit.
The only other report is that
Heritage Day. So there was an add-on printout.
Be verbal, but it was.
Hey, over to you.
So Danica just provided everyone with a Heritage Festival update and the status of the planning and what she's got going on so far. It's double-sided.
So I'll contact her about, let's see whether she wants me to pick up the ice and deal with that as well, as I've done it for the last couple of years. Rod, who do I need to talk to about whether the Aggies need me in the barbecue or not?
Will would be your best bet.
Thank you.
If we get all the vendors again,
And I believe the Legion is doing a pancake breakfast.
They are.
right now.
8:30 till 10:30, I think.
that's the same as last year.
No.
Okay, are there any other reports?
I attended, I attended NASA last week, so there'll be a bunch more recommendations coming from the DSAD down to the townships, I would assume. A lot of it has to do with paramedics and that kind of stuff, because the province wants to have a 3-year college education before you graduate, and which is a little bit ridiculous for the simple reason that we're short on paramedics in Ontario big time. So by going to a 3-year before you graduate means that we won't have people graduating and won't be able to out there and work as soon. So I mentioned to everyone, 50 years ago, when I went to college, I did a 3-year course in a year and a half. I just went straight through. So it give them another idea of something to look towards. If they want to make it a 3-year, allow anybody that wants to fast track it.
Well, you absolutely can. It's currently a 52-week program through CTS.
But
You can be a certified paramedic in less than 1
But
year.
up there, they're talking, it's 3 years.
Now they want to expand it.
They're extending it because people are failing out. So
It's a 2-year now, Jared?
it's 2 years right now, but they want to extend it a year because people are failing. Well, when I went to college, in the first 2 weeks, people were failing. And the people that graduated were less than half. You're gonna get that no matter what.
Right now, you can register in a program.
I'm just
For
saying what I was told.
And right now, the
I-
Ontario government is
Yeah.
also doing a stay and work program. So they will pay your tuition if you agree to work in the community for 6
Mhm.
months after you graduate.
That's the whole key. They want people to stay in the north.
My concern with that is that I think they're gonna have more people graduate than jobs.
Apparently, there's way too many jobs to even worry about that. Northern Ontario is worried about not enough people. Because they rely on the paramedics for their healthcare. Up north, so that's a big problem.
I wonder, I don't know what the avenue or arena for this conversation is, but the current EMS bases, I find slightly concerning. I feel like we could really benefit from one in like Whitestone. Like if you're in Magnetawan, you're relying on South River or Berks Falls or
Yeah.
potentially Huntsville.
They have a nurse station over there.
Yeah, I mean an EMS station for emergency services. Because if the South River person is on a call, taking somebody to North Bay, you're waiting for somebody from Perry Sound to get there.
And if you go yourself way up north, they're closing them down.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Just wondered if we could.
we're lucky to have what we have even right now. And up and where was it? Wawa or up in either Wawa or Timmins, I can't remember. But they closed their station down and now they have nothing. So it's a big deal.
There's more in that.
Mayor was not happy.
There's more of that coming, Jerry.
Well, there'll be all kinds of resolutions. We spent a day going over 20 some odd different resolutions, so I expect my DSAD meeting on Thursday will encapsulate all those different resolutions. And they'll all be
They'll be coming here.
coming our way, I would expect.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
I have questions for Jerry. Rod, you had,
So the library building committee met last week. They're gonna be meeting with Dave.
Nailing down a date.
So just one little thing that I'll clarify was Joe was pretty adamant that at no time was well, I used the $1,250 that the library board had put forth to get the project moving. Joe said at no time was that ever meant to mean ownership. I said to him, I said, okay, well, I took it differently. I owned up to it. I said, because I was the one pushing with the fact that any monies going in would result in percentage of ownership. So him and I chatted back and forth, and he said it was never meant that way. And then there was another board member spoke up and said, I believe it was meant to be ownership in my, so it was like, I got backed up on with what I was saying. So Joe was adamant it didn't mean to come that way.
Yeah.
Another board member felt that was what it was meant 100%. So a little bit of clarity there, but they're very adamant. They're moving forward. I questioned the whole, what are we doing? And it's like, we're moving forward. Like they're adamant, we're moving forward. We do not have to wait till somebody makes a decision. They're gonna get as much as they actually, I read an email today quickly. And then I deleted it, but, and I wanted to go back and reread it, but it was, I think they actually got paperwork from the Village of Burkes Falls with the value of the land, which was pretty neat. So Nancy's on this committee. It was weird because Nancy's on the building committee, but Sean's on the library board. So anyway, but it'll be interesting, I think, with Nancy on their council. Like I've seen her ask a question and she's gotten an answer and it results into another question. So she was adamant. I said to her, no offense, but I said, this was a resolution sent from the library board. They sent it to ask for the value of the land and make the land available. Like period.
Yeah.
There was a round. They were almost blaming Sean for not doing his job as the library rep to Burkes Falls. And I said, I clarified. I said, no, he did do his job. I said, he did make that presentation at his council meeting. And I said, and the council passed a resolution in principle. I said, that was based on Sean's presentation. And the value of the land was, Chris had asked Dennis if they could make it available. Dennis said yes, it was a public information. That's where it went. So the library board was adamant. A month ago, we asked these questions. We asked the board member to get the answers. The board member's not here, but Nancy said she will take these concerns and get answers. So, and I think I read that they actually got the value. So I think Nancy's going to stand her ground when it comes to, like, Sean made recommendations from the library board or requests from the library board, and he was basically fluffed off. I don't think they're gonna do that with Nancy.
Does the lot have to be severed, Rod?
It has to be, yes.
It has to be severed.
It hasn't been done yet.
In the try, they said that's easy. It will take no time at all for them to do that.
But like I said, here and them, we can't move forward. Like Ryerson has ponied up some money. We don't know whether they have it on hand, but they've ponied up some money. Burkes Falls has said they're not giving any money, they're only giving the land. So my point is, if they made the land available, we don't need Ryerson's money until the building is ready to go. We could be looking for funding, like I don't understand why Burkes Falls, unless it's something else Nancy was going to clarify, was I don't understand why Burke's Falls said 3 to 5 years. They're not looking at this project going forward for 3 to 5 years, possibly longer. I don't understand why. It's not like they have to build the land. They don't have to buy the land. It's there. They just got to make it available. And if it's available, Dave, the building committee on the library, they can start shooting for funding.
I believe the reason they do not want to make it available until the building is starting is because if they make it available today and it's worth 120,000 today, then that's their contribution, 120. But if we don't build for another 5 years, then the land is worth 150. Their contribution would have been 150.
I'm not buying that. I understand they're just behind that. Nancy denied that statement was made. Nieves backed me up. But that does not sit well. If Ryerson has ponied up money, Armour has ponied up money, and Burke's Falls is going to pony up something, maybe. They need to pony it up because we can't apply for grants until the land is available. We could be applying, we could be getting grants up front. We could be getting grants now. And in 3 years, maybe there's enough money we could start building. But until Burke's Falls divinely says, this is your land, and the value is, they can't turn around and say, we're going to sell you the land, but if it's worth more when you build the building, we want more for it. We're giving the land away over here at below market value of today. We don't care what the value is going to be when we're done.
I just think it meets is their contribution 10% or 15%, right? I understand. But Dave, you had suggested at the last meeting a letter?
We put together, but there was a litany of concerns that were gone through at the last meeting, right from rents to the new build to everything else. So yes, I think that if council has concerns as a council that need to be addressed, I think by and large across a lot of the shared service agreements, the communication process is typically the first thing to break down. So if council agrees on those concerns, I can work with whoever would like to have input on it to draft a letter that outlines those concerns and formally requests a response. And I'm hoping that may alleviate some further circular discussions around similar points. The other side of that thing is to add on to where we're moving forward. My statement at the Tri-Council is that we've got a resolution that was sent out with my March staff report asking for decisions. Burke's Falls gave back their decision with regard to presumably keeping the property, but more directly going the Helico Piers option. Armour Township tabled the resolution in favor of hearing back from primarily Burke's Falls as they own the land. And the other partners. Ryerson has not passed a resolution to the effect of that staff report, and Armour has not.
But it was confirmed at the Tri-Council meeting that the cost of the lands from Burke's Falls includes the site prep work. That's in the minutes.
Yes.
Yes. So with that being said, if we want to bring back that resolution from our March meeting to our next meeting, and Armour Township can pick their option. And just as a quick recap, it was to go with the Red Cross Road site was option 1, and then you pick your foundation. Then there was pick a new site altogether, and the third option was abandon the project. So if we want to bring that resolution back and get that rolling, saying, with whatever direction council would like to take, then we can communicate that back to Burke's Falls and Ryerson, get Ryerson to hopefully review that decision and get it back. And at the same time, we can start working on the agreement. Now, to the point of the capital project, there was a great example of an agreement to cover a build project that was just brought back to the tri-community through the fire agreement. So possibly after we get a decision back saying no, all 3 partners are moving forward with that site, or if there's a dispute, then we deal with that as it comes up, or a difference of opinion, then we deal with that. But I think procedurally, we just need to follow a few steps. We can bring that resolution back. We can pen a letter with with some of our other concerns or questions, and request a response there. And then thirdly, get on the library agreement so that we can give, so that hopefully we can get to a point where we can get that signed.
Yeah.
And alleviate some of the current concerns that were brought up at the tri-council meeting. So, I mean, that would be kind of a three-pronged approach to looking at that. I know that was more than just the build project, but if we want to keep the build project moving from our end, let's get a resolution passed, at least communicate, you know, we're moving forward with.
And get the agreement signed.
Yeah.
When's the next subcommittee meeting?
So we have to send a date out for that. Wendy and I just got a chance to do a meet and a catch up yesterday. So we've got to get a date set up, but I would presume we could have one within a couple of weeks.
So if you have one after our next council meeting, they'll have something to take
I would think
for conversation.
with the urgency of I think that the hope was that we'd have a draft agreement, draft library agreement for the August tri-committee.
If they agreed at the tri-council that it's going to be build ready, its value is not going to be its current value. If it's valued at, I believe it was 117 when it was discussed last summer.
Yeah.
But if they have to have it build ready, that's going to be like $300,000.
No, but build ready. So,
What do they mean by build ready?
well, some people are believing that the helical piles are build ready. That's foundation.
For the build.
That was based into the foundation isn't part of the building. So that I will agree that's not part of the building ready, but building ready is having all the friggin' studies done.
It's the stuff we're doing for Peg's Mountain.
Yeah,
So
and all that.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, build ready is a severed piece of land is as close as you're gonna get to being.
Please plan with all the studies.
Yeah.
And you know where you go to build.
You can't do the studies without having a severance.
Right.
Well, actually, you can.
Bird Falls,
Yeah, I guess you could.
We're doing it
We're
over.
doing it over, yeah.
okay. Bird Falls needs to own up to, not in principle. And like,
Yeah, it's gotta be, this is what we're contributing.
it's, okay, we're the same as Armour sent a resolution or sent a request out, what was everybody's opinion? We haven't answered our own question. Burke's Falls has answered a question in principle.
But again,
I'm not sure the three municipalities and the library board are on the same page with the timing of this.
Well, they're not.
Because I got the sense when we were discussing the fire agreement, even when Ryers, they don't see the library moving forward any time real soon.
It was
A 5-year project.
plus 5 years plus. Burke Falls said 3 to 5, maybe more. So, but my point is, what do we need from them to build it?
the first step, I think, goes back to the agreement, because until we nail down with the capital costs, whether it's a 40-40-20 split or whatever number we come up with in the agreement, that's gonna dictate. So then we can go to Burke's Falls and say, okay, you're supposed to pony up 40%. That means the value of the land is 130 and the value of the studies is 60,000 or whatever, and you still owe us another 100,000 to bring your percentage up. But I think we have to start with the agreement.
So,
And then we can go back.
so I agree and argue with you, is that's gonna be contradictory, because Burke's Falls has said they are only ponying up the land. They made that statement months ago.
Yeah.
They were, but on the other hand, when like I questioned the fire agreement, I was told the agreement is good, but the percentages won't have to be the same. So Burke's Falls' percentage is gonna be $117,000, whatever that percentage. It's not gonna be the same percentage. That's the conversation that comes
But
out.
that's what has to change. And that's what's wrong with the agreements today, is because it doesn't talk to the ownership side of things. And that's why these projects always fail.
But that's why Burke's Falls were okay with putting in $117,000, and whatever that percentage was their ownership.
Yeah.
So the conundrum will be, okay, if your ownership is only, I'm not good with doing math in my head like that, but let's take it one step further. Right now, Burke's Falls is 100% owner of the library and they collect rent. So does the new library build are they gonna be collecting rent? And then that means Burkes Falls are gonna be getting a smaller piece of the pie.
Yeah.
We're paying a bigger piece of the pie, but we'll be getting more of a pie back in the rent. Or do we charge rent because it's coming from the municipalities? But be honestly, like if we're gonna look at today's standards and tomorrow's standards, Burkes Falls is collecting 100% of the rent. The next day's standards are, oh, we're not gonna charge rent.
Yeah.
Well, why not? It's because they don't own much. Armour owns a bigger piece of the pie, we're gonna get more rent. But the other like I said, the other part of the conversation is why do we need to charge rent? If it's the municipalities.
If the municipality owns it, it's like Perry Township, they're not charging them.
Is there a possibility for us to purchase the land, for Armour Township to purchase that piece of land from Burkes Falls for $117,000, for Armour Township to build a library there, and then whatever the split is, that's the operating cost, they would then put rent back, it would be identical, except that we would then be the landowner and the rent would be paid to us as opposed to them. Is that possible for us to just own the building outright?
So that would have to, we're gonna own, let's just say if the funding comes forward and we get all the funding that we're gonna need, Armour spends $500,000, Ryerson spends 125, and Burkes Falls spends 117. Do the math. That's the percentage of, because and I don't believe, if we get funding, if we get $1 million funding, that's not part of ownership. Am I correct?
So I think you're probably, but to your first point, like that you started out with, if we have decisions back from, if we have a partnership, because right now we don't have a partnership. If we have a partnership and we have contributions, people who put money on the table, people who put investments on the table, then we can start, you're correct in that if we have an agreement saying, you know, that we choose to move forward with this site, everyone's moving forward with that site, we can then pursue funding as it is available. As far as the contributions and who's paying what and everything else, I don't think there's really, like, I don't think we're gonna hammer out the semantics of what the arrangements are gonna look like at this point. Let's focus on the first step, which is let's get an agreement to move forward. The rent, everything else are things that I think will wash out as we have a separate build agreement, because if the percentages outlined in the funding agreement aren't going to align with what the build is, then you can't really, we're gonna have to hammer that out later too, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, if we have an agreement, Armour agrees Red Cross, Ryerson Red Cross, Burkes Falls Red Cross, and we do have some money in the pot, so to speak. Then we can take that, and if we can get 80% funding, then maybe we have a library with $625,000 in the bank. And then we figure out the rest of it later. We can, to your point with the library board, we could move forward and investigate if there's funding available. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend doing that without the safety of an agreement, but if the library board wants to continue moving forward and investigating, you know, how they may support the fundraising efforts and everything else, then terrific, Godspeed. We have a chunk of property. Burkes Falls can work on severing it. But if we even have just in a principle, Armour supports Red Cross Road, Ryerson supports Red Cross Road site, Burkes Falls supports Red Cross Road site. Here are some of the things that we've already done. We can show that there's partnership. The severance at that point, you don't need to have a severance to apply for the funding. You just need to have it in place
When you go to do
the bill.
And who applies for the funding? It wouldn't be the board, it would be the.
At this stage in the juncture, it'd be Armour Township, right? Because we're leading the project. So as far as that goes, the rest of the P's and Q's, who charges rent, who like that. At this point, it's irrelevant, and I wouldn't want to have potentially inflammatory conversation before we even had a partnership.
And I'm just babbling everything I've heard. But you're right. So my point is, you're right on that. Is if Burkes Falls says 3 to 5, maybe more years, Ryerson says 5+ years. If we have everything our agreements, yeah, I agree. We need to have an agreement in place. We don't need to wait 3 to 5 years. If something comes up and says, hey, there's $1.5 million funding, it's available. All you gotta do is apply for it. But Burks Falls and Ryerson are saying, no, we don't want to apply for it for 3 to 5 years. That's my point. We don't need to wait 3 to 5 years. We could be moving forward.
Yeah.
It's not on hold. If something comes up, we can move forward. Not get it out of your head that it's not happening for 3 to 5 years, because we might miss out on, like, if the economy takes a shit kicking, there won't be any money in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
If something happens that there's money available, we're in a position that we can move forward. We don't need to say to Burks Falls, wow, we missed out on 150% funding because you said 3 to 5 years.
But the point that Burks Falls, the point that Burks Falls is making is this is all we have to give right now.
Yeah.
The
Right.
point that Ryerson is just the same thing. This is all we have to give. Don't even talk to us for 5 more years because you're not getting any more.
And that's fine.
And that's fair. So we know where they stand. So I think we go ahead, we look at if there's any potential for funding. We agree that that's the site, as Dave was saying. And more importantly, we get an agreement, a library agreement, because at the end of December, we don't even have a library anymore. So we've got to fix that problem.
When we make a library and we make it a capital cost. There's our 500,000 capital, Burks Falls 117. There's just capital. Operations is another ball of wax.
And that's the problem we've had, is that we're okay with the operational stuff, but we've never done, what do we do on capital projects? We've never figured it out.
And that's where they,
That's where all the arguments are.
that's where that has come to play.
There are steps that we could take, like very succinctly, there are steps that we could take to be more ready for.
And that's all my point is, we could be more ready.
Right. And
Shovel ready. We gotta be shovel ready. We're not. Not even close.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other reports? Let's take a break and then we'll go through correspondence and unfinished business and new business.
I don't
Get
get
a
all of
report.
the information's disclosed based on
Oh,
that.
yeah, I think you get a final decision. I don't know.
just as a point, I neglected to hit mute. Okay, could maybe, Mr. Mayor, you reread the resolution?
Oh, sorry, Dave.
Seconder.
Okay.
No, that was me. I forgot to unmute.
Sorry for those folks listening in to the recording or online. I will repeat the resolution. Council Township of Armour supports the District of Perry Sound Municipal Association and requests that the Ontario government provide free access to information so that councils can be effective in their role in our democratic system. And further, that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Ombudsman and Integrity Commissioners provide, if requested by a municipality, sufficient particulars of each investigation to permit the municipality to fully understand and address the subject matter of each investigation. This was moved by Rod Blakelock, seconded by Jerry. And we are now discussing. Part of this, I think, if I remember last year's municipal association meeting, there were complaints about the amount of money and time that gets spent on these things. And the fact that they don't know anything about it, it's just that they just keep coming at them. There's a cost and time associated with it.
So the additional information to the final report?
Because one of the statements says, whereas municipal affairs and the ombudsman offices are hesitant to give information, so there's nowhere to ask questions and learn. So like Wendy said, you get a notice of decision, but you don't have the background behind it. You're not allowed to ask questions.
Oh. I like to ask questions. I'm for that.
Any other questions on this one? All those in favor? Carried. That's the only one in that section, sure.
Yes, there's only one support resolution.
Next is, okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns about items 17 to 29?
Your OPP board meeting is tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And Heritage Festival is a discussion item.
Also, they heard our request about summer tourism and increase in police presence and tourism there. That's good. Okay. On to item 30 under unfinished business. So this was staff report to establish a secondary school graduation bursary. So we had this in our, but we tabled it for further discussion. And so, Char, I don't know if anything's changed in this.
I did, based on the conversation, we removed naming the bursary after a person. And we amended it so that it opened up applications to someone that may not be going to college or university, just graduating. And the award would be open to more than just O'Meguin Highlands, to a student that resides within Armour Township and doesn't necessarily go to O'Meguin High, may go to a different high school. So it's very open, very inclusive, and it adds the requirement for a submission. And that I still left the meeting not 100% as to what we wanted them to write. So on page 104, I just plunked in there, why is civic education important to you? In your own words, please provide a response, maximum 200 words. I didn't want to get anything, you guys don't want to be reading 500 word essays, I don't think.
Below where it says, so are you continuing with post-secondary education in the fall, yes or no? Can we just write, if yes, program of study? Underneath it, it says, if you are not continuing, what are you doing? But if yes, program of study, if no, what are you doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if they're not continuing their education, what would they be using the bursary funds for?
Try business.
Oh, for business, okay, to start a business.
I heard you wrong. I thought you said none of your business. And I was like, I feel like I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
That's it on the tape later and see.
And that's why
So
there it says, if you are not continuing on with education, what are your plans?
Yeah.
Could be entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
selling lemonade on the street or something, you know,
Maybe travel.
could be.
I'm gonna become a civically educated globally.
But I don't know if that's a question that you would like to have. Maybe you want to have, what would you do with the $500?
I would like to ask how they've contributed to their community.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask about. Yeah. Because that's the spirit of the.
Mhm. Because I think we have, with every generation, with every population, we have silent givers, silent volunteers that you don't necessarily see, but they're out there doing things, so.
And we could change that question. I can, maybe
Yeah.
bring that back annually, so you're not reading the same thing over and over again. But obviously this won't make the 25 because it's already.
Well, we get time to tweak it.
Yeah, we had also talked about maybe on an annual basis, we would name a family and or like in the first case, Marty. Are we gonna just leave that out?
I think we'll leave it out because it was mentioned last week. Last meeting, I hadn't even reached out to Marty's family regarding it. And some families may not be supportive of the idea, but it was just, I was using the one that McMurrick had.
Yeah.
As an example. But I do like the idea of just keeping it as Armour Township. So what I can do is I can revise it again, just so that you guys can see what it looks like. And then from there, I can circulate it next year
Yeah.
to all the schools with a letter so that you're aware.
I think we can pass the resolution and then if we make subtle adjustments. Now, we held this one because you weren't here, so did you have any other questions?
No, I support it. I didn't have a problem with it being named after someone. I think we could do that as long as we leave it open to tweak it every few years or update it. But I have no problem with it being a generic either.
Rod made the point that the money's coming from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So if the taxpayers are paying for
Yeah.
the Wendy Whitwell
Yeah.
Memorial Fund.
Yeah.
It's
No, I understand that as it's.
Okay, so I'll read the resolution and whoever moves, make a stab at an amount. Council Township of Armour approved the establishment of an annual $ blank bursary to be granted to a graduating student from a secondary school to recognize a student that resides in Armour Township who demonstrates community spirit, civic engagement, or an interest in trades mechanics. I get a mover. Dorothy moves with a dollar amount.
I think I read 500 somewhere.
That was just a recommendation. I wasn't sure if you.
But can we just include that the amount will be like to be determined each year or to be determined annually?
Could do that.
Like this year, like 2026, we'll say it's 500. 2029, it might be 450, might be 850. Depending.
I think we just add that as if we think it needs to be changed. I'd rather just have a number in there as opposed to a new term of council going, well, what are we gonna give? What do we, like, it just,
Yeah,
if it's just a standard number.
500 then I think is a significant. Sir?
500 it is. And a seconder. Wendy. Okay, any other questions on this one?
I was just wondering if a student from a secondary school or a student of higher learning. Just maybe you might have somebody not in high school.
So, and so to Jerry, so if somebody, I'm just thinking, adding on was, if somebody graduated from school and just had no desire to do anything. And then 2 years later said, you know what, I'd like to go back to college. I'd like to, and then they could take advantage of this. Is that an option? Is that where you're?
Sort of.
We have
I
like
think
a
it's
golf
more
study
than
to do.
just high school. I think it's an Armour resident that's gonna go on to a higher learning of some sort, but when?
We've also got the Almagwin Adult Learning Center that,
Yeah.
that Armour residents can take advantage of, and if they get their GED and wanna.
Who we also give money to, right? I think.
I'll go back, I like the idea, just, it's kids going out of school. You finished high school and you're doing something.
I'm okay with that.
It'll be difficult to control if it's not through.
It'd be difficult for me. If I don't just hit the high schools,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then how do you?
and if I miss one, then someone's gonna be.
No, I think if you just, we keep it at the high school level. I mean, if somebody's gonna go back to school, they probably worked for a few years and socked away a little bit. I mean, somebody coming out of high school doesn't have any money.
Or there are bursaries available to people, adult learners going into education.
Yeah.
Or post. And yeah, at this point, there's only 3 high schools that would be like Almagwin, Huntsville, or St. Mary's, right?
St. Mary's is the one in Bracebridge.
Mhm.
Yeah, that I would think.
I can't think of any other high schools that our ratepayers would feed into.
Students from this area that go up to North Bay to school,
Some go to North Bay,
Public school?
high school.
high school.
High school.
They're
Yeah.
not bused though.
No, they have to go, they have to get there.
They used to be bused.
Well, they can be, they would still be students. I think Logan was, they would be a student of Almagwin, but transported for like to the college and things like that.
But they still went to the high school.
They were still enrolled at Almagwin Highlands.
Some students went to North Bay instead of going to Omega.
Right.
Is that
because
the
of
French?
Specific courses.
No, not for French, like Scholar Hall. Some went to Scholar.
I'm just talking ordinary. If you didn't want to go to Omega, you could go up to North Bay. It's in the near north school.
Yes,
board,
yes, of course.
So
Okay, so we just, if you live in Omagwin and you've graduated,
well,
Live in Armour.
you're an Armour Township resident, right?
But just
So
for you,
that
like
covers
you don't want to contact
Every-
15 different high schools.
So if I did the 3 high schools and contacted the school board
Yeah.
near North, they could disperse them.
You don't have to define the high school. You're an Armour Township resident.
But Char has to get the information to the students to know to apply for the bursary.
It's on our web.
no, but the schools are a better source.
The schools, so what happened this year with Logan graduating or being grade 12 is they sent out circulations to the kids to tell them these are the bursaries that are.
Of course.
Scholarships.
But yes, sorry, I'm going past that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, we have a mover and a seconder. Who's in favor? That's carried. All right, next, we have the draft zoning bylaw amendment for accessory use dwelling in the M zone.
And before Kayla circulates that, this was another example of one that we wanted to bring to council, just because it was allowing for the accessory use in the rural industrial, so she just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
guys were okay with it.
So we don't have any, there's no resolution for this one?
No,
Just
in-
information.
So
Yeah.
this has come up based on the delegation we had at the meet couple
Yeah.
of weeks ago, right?
And he did put exceptions, so you can note in the lands affected and on page 111. That you can't have a residential use in fire hall, police station, ambulance, institutional uses, public utility yards, or any public agency building. And this would support your community housing.
Mhm. And still leave that zone on, but allow residential use.
I know specifically there is a property that has an M zoning and they have a shop. And they wanted to build a house and they couldn't, like a residential, so it pretty much slowed down the build. Because now it's 2 properties he has to have.
That's the one on,
Um,
No, in the corner of Berrydale and
Yeah, top end.
Bring up Pepsi.
oh, okay.
So this does deal with the properties on Berrydale that we were discussing, were they M?
no, that was a different one. That was a different one.
No, this is a while back.
No, I remember the one on Berrydale, but is that what's on the, it was this commercial zone, was it not?
So the ones that we had the delegation
Yeah.
for, that one went to council. The CHMH zone will stay. But there will be provisions added in the, under the holding zone. Which will allow for residential.
Oh, okay, so this is completely different.
This is
Yes.
completely different.
Okay,
This is, yeah.
that's what happens when you miss a meeting.
Everybody's happy.
You're lost. Okay, so this is to deal with the M, strictly the M, okay.
So this one's gonna come back at a future meeting?
This one will be a public meeting. This one, you wanted it brought back to review to make sure that Bob was gonna put exceptions in because you didn't want residential uses in some of the,
Right.
with some of the uses in the M zone. Make sense?
Okay. Next up, 32, the cornhole tournament. So we've got a resolution to extend the sale license for the cornhole tournament coming up. Council Township of Armour approved the expansion of the liquor sale license of the Katrine Community Center on June 29th, 2025 for the cornhole tournament to include the concession stand and the fenced-in pavilion located at 6 Browns Drive, Katrine, next to the ball field. Hey, mover.
Sure.
Chair. Seconder.
Sure.
Rod. Okay. I don't think you can play cornhole without alcohol, can you?
We only need one hand to throw.
Okay, any questions on that one? All those in favor? Jerry, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I had it up.
Okay. It's just up for a sec, so I wasn't sure. Carried.
And Dorothy, there was.
Yeah.
Even what?
I saw her kick them.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know if there's enough alcohol in the world to make me want to play cornhole, but
Oh, yeah.
Ellen. Okay. Item 33, land studies for Peggs Mountain Road. There's a staff report here, so I'll read in the resolution and then we'll get Dave's comments. The staff report from the CAO dated June 10th, 2025 be received and the council direct staff to proceed with hiring Tulloch to complete a phase 1 environmental site assessment, a species at risk assessment, and a preliminary drainage study. Furthermore, that staff fund these studies at an estimated cost of $34,000 through the capital reserve. I get a mover.
Sure.
Rod. Seconder,
Second that.
Darcy. And over to you, Dave.
Sure. So a handful of meetings ago, there was some discussion around setting kind of preliminary budget figures for what Armour wanted to invest into those properties, not just specific to the potential for some developments that have been discussed, but just similar to what had been done with the Highway 520 park. The notion was to get a budget for what those studies would cost in today's dollars. So I'd actually requested 4 different studies. The archaeological study assessment is also mentioned in the report. I've only recommended the 3 that, to my knowledge, through the purchasing of that property, as well as any other information we have, that property was never identified in any sort of documentation or any sort of study to have any historical or archaeological significance that would trigger us to require an archaeological assessment on the property. So to that end, we've not done one in the 520 park or any other development lands that we've considered. So I think I think these 3 more than sufficient to move things forward. Phase 1 archaeological assessment is $7,000, and if they happen to find something, then that gets considerably higher to $67,000. So unless we're required to have one, which based on my research, we are not, if it has not been designated or noted as having any historical significance, archaeological significance, I think we just proceed as we have with other projects.
Just wondering, when MTO went all the way through on all the roads, would they have had to have done any studies?
You'd think. I don't have that information off the top of my head. That was another question. So I did speak with John, who went through the purchase of the property. He had said that there was nothing flagged on the file when that property was sold.
Gary, do you remember when when the highway was being worked on, we had those great big binders on the counter?
Right.
Those were MTO documents, but most of them were EAs. So it was, and there was some drainage in there as well. I don't remember.
I think a lot of it
They
had
were
to do with
huge binders,
how the road was going to be looking at it.
but the environmental
But
assessments.
they may have some sort of drainage in there.
Well, there were the chickens. The chickens were there. That's something I'll never forget.
You could use
Some
them today anyway.
Well, the ditch is still there.
By the time we
know.
dig them up, probably could have done the study and.
It was those were boxed and put downstairs, but God knows if they're still there or not. As soon as I retired, I think the girls went nuts shredding.
Not me, I retain everything. Is that
It's part of the archaeological assessment.
said they're big green binders?
No, they were white and they were produced by MTO. But we had 3 binders for this section of the highway and then 3 for the north section. And they were about this thick and they were like so.
Every little section of road.
Yeah.
Sounds like a treasure hunt.
But I'm sure they were the environmental assessments. But there was maps and stuff in there too.
But the binders were white?
Yeah, white covers, green writing on them, I think.
MTO colors.
Let's go on a field trip right now.
If we get lucky, the price may drop a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly take a look and see if we can find that.
Well, that's probably a public record that our engineers would have access to finding.
Well, and the wonder I would have is whether or not the rest of that, if they did EAs on every single property they purchased, or whether it was specific to.
This is the corridor.
This is the lane, yeah, and this is where we're going.
We need, yeah.
So we could look at that, and if we find it, then we just don't commission that study.
Yeah.
Sure. Maybe it comes out and maybe not. Don't know.
In today's world, but
Yeah, taking a look.
Sean
Who's
seemed
reading that?
remarkably excited to
Find it. Somebody else has to read it.
Got a day planned for tomorrow.
Kayla staff report, is this?
Yeah. Other questions for Dave?
So pass that?
We've only got we've first it and seconded it, but we haven't passed it yet.
So
I think we
just
should
a
go.
question, when
Pass it,
at
just-
the tri-council meetings, Chris asked value of the land. And you gave them a number because it was based on what we bought it for.
Correct.
Does that number, could we not use that number? Could that number not include what we pay for the studies too?
It could not.
Oh, okay.
And it could not on the notion that any dollar, we may be able to make an appeal to the Ministry of Transportation, but the way the sale agreement is worded is for a period of 5 years, we cannot make any more money than what we paid for that property if we sell it. We may be able to dovetail in costs that we've accrued. I may actually reach out to John about, because he might have got a couple of dollars for the entrance.
He used that speech when we, on the 520. And,
So 520 wouldn't apply because that was an MTO property.
okay,
But
but up here it did, because he said, because we used Armour Township.
Money, taxpayers' money.
We upgraded that land.
Yeah.
To this point, and he said, we included that, so I just triggered that thought.
So it is,
Studies up there that we did entrances.
Yeah, it was work that we had done.
Improvements.
So we can discuss that actually as supplementary to this comment. I did reach out to the MTO rep with regard to the other properties that council had expressed interest in. We're still waiting, but that touch base was there. So I do have an inroad with their real estate team. But we will have to get approval.
Yep.
Once the money is spent.
Yep.
So it is possible that we could factor in. I gave the number of $7,000 an acre, and that's what we based. Funny enough, with upping the price for the 520 park, we're going to make back. Well, we're going to make a little bit of money based on what we paid for it eons ago. So yeah, maybe it shouldn't have been a hard and fast no, but based on the agreement as it stands right now, without an amendment or without an appeal, we can't charge any more than what we paid for it. Or if we do, they get it.
Yeah, claw it back.
I just remember John saying we can ask. If we're selling the land, it's based on what we put into it, buying it and our upgrade. Just a question.
$7,000 with a mandatory donation of.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, poor Allison, I just realized that this is probably the one she's been waiting for. So staff report, tax arrears registration, item number 34.
You fell asleep.
I apologize, Allison, I would have moved this up in the agenda. I was thinking you were here for something else.
That's okay. I'm just here just in case you have questions.
Yeah, okay. So we have the report here. We have Allison online if we have any questions, but this is just reducing the time frame in terms of tax arrears from 3 years down to 2 years. Okay.
And is that just from what I get, that is theoretically to help those that are in arrears as well? Or is it just?
I think it will help people that are in arrears because we'll be going after people earlier.
Right.
So I think that would help a lot. Like I have 2 people that will be going to tender this year for tax sales. And I had one guy pay like last minute. So I think it will help. Our last tax sale was, I think, 2021. So.
Yeah. So this is just informational at this stage, Allison. There's no resolution.
Yeah, you guys don't have to do anything because it's in the legislation right now. It was passed in the Municipal Act back in 2017, or the Municipal Act was amended in 2017 to change that legislation. The previous treasurer didn't want to change the way we did anything. He wanted to keep it at 3 years because he liked receiving the extra interest. But we're not receiving the payments. So
doesn't really help, I guess.
yeah.
Well, I think that just that the one point that I'll draw people's attention to, and this came up really relatively recently, is the amounts that we had in tax receivables did come up when we were applying for approved project financing. And so there were some concerns. Now there were some specific cases that went along with that. However, it is something that keeping a cleaner AR might be beneficial for the township's financial position or the financial outlook.
Okay. Questions for Allison?
No, I think it's a good idea.
It's something we should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah. Appreciate you doing the report up, Allison.
Yeah, no problem.
And waiting
And sorry for keeping you on.
2.5 hours.
That's okay.
Okay, now you can leave
Or say,
or stay if you want. Okay, last on the agenda, Library Board, Township of Armour does have a representative, so we have a, or at least a, potential representative. Donna Luck has sent in her email. She's a neighbor of mine, thinks she'd be great.
It looks like she's already volunteering, just not necessarily on the board, so.
So we do have a resolution. Council of Township of Armour appoint Donna Luck as the Township of Armour's representative on the Brooks Falls Armour Ryerson Union Library Board.
sure.
Yes.
Jerry and won't be. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, last but not least, Council of Township of Armour during this regular council meeting at 9:16 to be precise. For the next regular council meeting scheduled for June 24th, 2025, let's call the mayor of the clerk. Member Dorothy. Seconder. Rod. All in favor of leaving.
Allison.
Allison's gone.